Welcome back. This is the first of two video lessons looking at the equine digestive system and what makes them so unique. When we look at horses or other equids, they are known as non ruminant herbivores with hindgut fermentation. This means they have a simple one chamber stomach like us. They don't have this large rumen that we see in other herbivores called ruminants. And when you look at the comparisons side by side, you can see stark differences, say between a horse, a cow, and then even if we throw in a dog. And you can see in the horse, they have a relatively small stomach compared to this large stomach in the cow. But the fiber, right, herbivore, so eating grasses and other plants, is digested in the hindgut of the horse, whereas in the ruminant or in the cow, that's in the foregut or in the stomach. So, two different strategies on digesting meals where, dogs and other carnivores, they don't eat a lot of fiber. So, they don't have the large stomachs or the large hindguts to digest that. They don't have a lot of microbes or anything like that. They eat a lot of protein, meat, right? So, very interesting comparison when you look at the three. Now, the advantages to the horse is their digestive system is set up that they're, very efficient at getting energy out of fibrous feeds or foods like hays and forages. They also have a streamlined body shape for explosive agility. So that's important to, evade predators. They see a predator and the predator wants to chase them. They're like, okay, good luck. Boom. And they're gone. And that's a little bit different when you compare that to a cow, which can't run quite as fast as a horse, because, cattle and buffalo and other ruminants, their defense mechanisms is they have horns and they gather in big herds and then they put those horns out where horses just go, okay, good luck, see you, bye. Some of the disadvantages is that it's a fast passage rate of feed in their system, and it means they're adapted to continuous feeding, a continual trickle of feed in their digestive system. And since domestication, we've changed that a little bit. So can lead to some issues that we're going to discuss later in the course. But just keep that in mind that horses are meant to eat small meals all day, and as we talk about their digestive system, you can see how it's set up to do that. Now, for the horse, digestion starts in the mouth. Very important. When we look at the teeth of the horse, this is important for mastication or reducing the particle size of the feed. So, as it gets swallowed and then into the digestive system, the horse has a better time or easier time breaking it down. Things to consider with the teeth, though, is you want your horse's teeth looked at every year because as they chew or grind down things like hay or forage, it can lead to development of sharp points or other problems in the teeth. So you always want to ensure to maximize their health that their dental health is perfect where it needs to be. Now, as they age, they get continual growth of their teeth, but once they hit those senior years, after the age of 20, the teeth stop growing and they may lose some teeth. So, that is a consideration, especially with our geriatric horses. Also, the other important aspect of the mouth is saliva. Horses can produce up to 20 liters, that's almost 5 gallons of saliva per day. Now, the importance of saliva is it helps lubricate the feed so the horse can swallow it and goes down the esophagus into the stomach, but it also helps buffer the stomach. And it's interesting that, and you think about it, it makes sense. When a horse is chewing hay, they're producing more saliva, which they in turn swallow, say, versus a grain meal where they'll chew it really quickly and swallow it quickly. So they're not producing as much. And then that leads to the next part of the upper digestive tract from the mouth to the esophagus. Very long muscular tube. You can see almost 1.5 meters. That's again almost 5 feet. That is very long. This is where you see sometimes where horses that like to bolt or what we call bolt their feed, eat it very, very quickly, may choke. It could be a side of choke. The other important thing to remember is horses can't vomit. And as feed goes down that esophagus into the stomach, it's a one-way system. So unlike, say, cats or dogs, that if they have a meal that upsets their stomach, they can regurgitate that. Horses can't do that. So very important to remember. And then that leads us to the horse stomach. Now, the stomach of the horse is divided into two regions, and this is looking at an endoscope, so you can clearly see it. And veterinarians can do this, especially when they're looking at things called ulcers. But two distinct regions where we have a squamous region and then that glandular region. So in the picture there, you're looking at more pinkish there. And you can see this with an endoscope. When we look at it in an image, you can see the squamous region is the upper portion of the stomach. And then you have this bottom region called the glandular region. Now, the glandular region is the site of the production of stomach acid, which is very important for digestion in the horse. It activates some enzymes, starts to help break down some feeds, kills pathogens that might be in that feed, and is very important. It also supports the gastric microbiome, which is emerging research that we know there's microbes that live in this environment. They help start to break down some things like starch and is beneficial to the horse. Now, that upper part of the stomach, the squamous region, typically doesn't have a lot of that acid in there. And this is where we have a high risk of gastric ulcers. Now, later in this course, we're going to discuss gastric ulcers more in depth. But as you can imagine, a horse on an empty stomach exercising or running, that acid is splashing up into that squamous region, which can cause some issues. So we're going to talk about that later in the course. But again, this is where the horse has been designed to have constant feed in their system all day long. And when we meal feed them, like we typically do in management, sometimes their stomachs are empty. So we're going to talk about that later in the course, but here just understand the two separate regions of the stomach and the purpose of the stomach. It's a very important part of that, where the squamous region has less protection from acid. That glandular region is where we're producing a lot of stomach acid and is protected, even though we do get ulcers there too, but is generally protected with a mucus layer in the stomach. And again, uh, big issue in horse management and something we're going to talk about later. So that leads us up to the stomach. And in the follow on lesson to this, we're going to continue the journey of the feed through the horse's digestive system, where we're going to be looking at the small intestine and then the hindgut of the horse. So let's get going.